Mobile hunters, are you looking to make the move to saddle hunting this year? Or maybe you just want to add a few new pieces of gear or upgrade your current saddle gear. If that's the case, then head over to tetherednation.com where they've got all mobile hunters covered. Whether you're new to saddle hunting or an old timer, Tethered is your one-stop saddle shop. From saddles to ropes, sticks, ascenders, whatever it is you need, they have you covered. I've personally been using their gear for the past 3 seasons now. My base setup consists of the Phantom saddle and the Predator platform. And if you're wondering why I've chosen to use their gear above all else, here's the cliff notes. They're innovative and pushing the mobile hunting forward overall. They cut no corners and prioritize the safety and performance of their gear. They care about the community that they've created, and their gear allows me to hunt free. And above all else, I like to support good people doing good work. If you're interested in upping your mobile hunting game, then head to tetherednation.com. This podcast is brought to you by Skull Brew Coffee Company. Skull Brew Coffee roasts premium single origin coffee, guaranteeing to deliver the freshest coffee directly to your doorstep. The kicker? They're 2% for conservation certified and donate 10% of their proceeds back to organizations who support the interests of our hunting community. So go to skullbrewcoffee.com and pick up one of their 3 killer roasts and fuel your hunt and fill more tags with Skull Brew Coffee. Welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Skull Brew Coffee Company. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 219. Today I'm catching up with my good buddy, Mr. Johnny Utah Mulligan, and we're talking about getting closure in Kansas. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you are feeling fine. Hope for those of us that have been in the snowy area, hopefully you guys are getting dug out. Finally, it's warmed up here just a little bit, and it seems like the snow is starting to recede just a bit. We're actually getting some rain, so hopefully it's going to melt it all off. And my hope is that by next weekend, I'll actually be able to go out and start hitting the timber and doing some postseason scouting and start making some plans. I think the pieces that I actually want to get to further north might have to wait a little longer, which is kind of a bummer because we had a significant amount of snow here, and in the Poconos, I know that they had even more than I have currently where I'm at. I'm probably 2.5 hours south of some of those places. So I know just from some reports from some friends of family. That first round of snow that we got maybe a foot, and they got 2, and then we got a subsequent 2+ more feet here, and so I think they're probably well over 3 or so up in that general area. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to make a trip up there and find out that there's way too much snow and way too deep for me to really do anything constructive. So it's going to be a mad dash in March to try to get stuff done, because I try to get as much of it done as possible before things start to really kind of green up, of course, especially in a new area like that where I've never been before, and it's all going to be brand new to me. So I really need to be able to see the sign. Some of the places locally, I kind of know what I need to do there. I'm going to check out maybe a few new spots here that are close to me. But those are going to just be kind of monitoring, going and looking to see where the sign was laid down in particular areas where I knew that it was kind of good previously, just to kind of verify that. In some of the areas that I didn't get to. And then there is one spot where there's just a huge clear cut that I didn't get a chance to scout last year, and it was probably shame on me for that. It was brand new last year. It was actually on a piece that I was hunting anyway, and I had some decent deer on a camera on this particular piece, however, in a completely different area from where the clear cut was. And I just never made it to that cut. It was brand new last year, so this year it should be really good. And it's a rather large cut, so my plan is to kind of go there, check it out, hopefully find some sign, and put up some cameras and monitor that and see what's shaking in that general area. But this time of year, man, shed hunting I know is upon us. I'm terrible at it. I go out and I look for them. I typically don't really find any. It's more of a scouting mission. So for those of you out there shed hunting, I hope you find some white gold, but kind of hitting the time of year where we start, maybe focusing on the honey-do list. But with that, not going to belabor the upfront here. Going to just kind of get jumped into today's podcast. You know him, you love him. I have my buddy, Mr. Johnny Utah Mulligan on. we're really just kind of catching up, man. He's got a lot of stuff going on, everything from catfishing to dirt track racing to you name it, we kind of cover it. The one thing that we do cover, though, is if you've tracked with his story at all, this past year, the couple times that we've had a chance to catch up, he had some family things that were going on that he shared. His dad got really sick, and did pass away. And so it was a real kind of, it was a hard season, for John for a lot of different reasons. And the way the season kind of closed for him on a particular hunt, in Kansas was really kind of cool. And John did a film about it. He of course films everything. And so, if you haven't yet, head over to the Arrow Wild YouTube channel and check out the film related to his Kansas hunt. Super cool film, super cool buck. And we're going to get into that today and talk about it. But before we jump into things, as always, I want to thank you all for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today, you know him, you love him. I've got the Kentucky Rattler, Johnny Dirt Track, by God, Utah Mulligan.
Dude, I tell you, I'm ready to jump in a dirt car right now.
Dude, I told you, it's like I always say I have to come up with the nicknames for you, and right before this, the Kentucky Rattler just came to me.
The Rattler, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know really where it came from, but actually I do know. I do. What's that?
Well, back in the day, I actually raced against a guy. His name was Justin Ratliff, and his race name was the Rattler.
The Rattler, nice. That's such a good name, man. The Kentucky.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The Kentucky Rattler. Where it came from was I was online the other day. This is totally not hunting related, but it is related to one of the two things that you and I both have in common that we like. I was jonesing for some dirt track racing for whatever reason. And I was and I remember I was talking to, Cameron from Exodus, right? Cam, the cameraman.
Yep.
He's big into dirt track racing too.
What? Is he really?
Oh yeah. Huge into, I think his brother actually even either did race or still currently races. And I think it's sprint cars. If it's not his brother, it's someone in his family races. Sure. I'm almost 100% sure. Because we were out scouting and I had mentioned something about wanting to go see a sprint car race. And he was like, dude, you're into sprint car racing? I'm like, yeah, dude. I was like, I love sprint car racing, and, so I was jonesing for some of that the other night, and he was telling me, I don't know where he was watching it, but when we were scouting this summer, he was saying that he had something online that he watched all kinds of dirt track racing, and so it dawned on me the night when I was sitting, I do watch, some football, and it's football season's over. It's I don't really watch basketball. There's no other sport that I really watch. And even during football, I don't really watch much because I'm hunting on Saturdays and I'll watch some on Sundays. But we're in that lull of time where it's there's jack shit on to watch on TV. And I've got snow. I got snow outside. It's asshole deep to a giraffe. So
yeah,
I'm not doing anything outside. And so I was like, you know what, man, I should try to find some racing online. And so I got on Dirt Vision, and I downloaded their Apple TV app. And so now I got dirt track racing whenever the hell I want.
Yeah. So every year I have an annual membership to Dirt on Dirt. Mm-hmm. It's a great app. And then this year, the first few races of the season were out in Arizona, the Wild West Shootout for late models. And that was on Flow Racing. There's Flow Sports.
Yeah. I think he watches Flow, I think is actually what he was using.
Yep. And then Mav TV was doing the rest of the Winter Nationals. They were down at East Bay in Gibsonton, Florida. Mm-hmm. And then they were racing at Volusia County. Yep. And then they were at Bubba Raceway Park in Ocala. Mm-hmm. So one of my best friends, he's currently, I believe he's 7th or 8th in the Lucas Oil points right now. He didn't have the best running at Winter Nationals, but yeah, my buddy Mike Marler out of Tennessee. I am all about some dirt racing.
Yeah, I love it. You just dropped all kinds of knowledge right there. It's I literally have one app, and the best thing was I started because this thing has like a vault where you can. I didn't get like this paid subscription where I could watch all the live stuff because I'm not that into it, you know. So I was like, you know
Sure,
what,
sure.
I'll sign up. They can send me some emails, and if there's a cool like World of Outlaws sprint race that I want to watch live, I have an account, and then I can just buy a ticket to that race. And I was like, and that's
Yeah.
cool. I was like, and that's cool. I was like, but I'll go back and watch all the vault races because they release them like a week after they run. They'll release them in the vault.
Exactly.
You know,
Yep.
and so I started kind of going back through that, and I was watching. I was like, who would have thunk it? But like, they have sprint car racing in Scotland, and there was a ton of races in Scotland. And so,
that's hilarious.
My brother-in-law is super into dirt track racing too. So I texted him. I was like, dude, I'm watching dirt track racing sitting on my couch. He's like, who's running? I'm like, oh, well, it's an old thing or whatever. And I was like, it's actually in Scotland. I was like, who would have thunk that they had, you know, sprint car rednecks in Scotland? He's like, yeah. And I was like, and I said, the weirdest thing is, man, they go the opposite way on the tracks. They turn right. And he's like, what? No way. And no, they don't.
Do they really?
No, they don't.
Oh, I was like, really? Yeah.
No, no.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, but he seriously bought it for like a hot minute. He was like, man, that's crazy. You know, I'm like, no.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, well, maybe they do. The cockpit maybe is on the right-hand side, so then maybe they do make right-hand turns.
Right.
That kind of threw me off for a little bit there.
Yeah, nice. Zinger. That's the zinger for today, right there.
Yeah.
So otherwise, man, what have you been up to, dude? Other than thinking about dirt track racing?
Yeah. January has been very busy. You know, after the Iowa season ended, I have been swamped with freelance photo gigs. I've been traveling. Yeah, I've been traveling a lot, and so that's been awesome. I have dove into the catfishing world.
All right. So I know when we talked, I know you'd been doing some stuff with some catfishing folks.
Yeah.
You know, and doing some photo shoots and stuff like that. Are you like getting bit by the catfishing bug to where it's like?
Yeah, I like it. You know, I mean, I grew up in Kentucky. We had a farm pond, and the way we catfished then was just on the bank with catfish dough bait, and cast your lines, and you set a big ass rock on your rod and reel, and then I'd go back to mowing the farm, or mowing grass, bush logging. And then sometime after dinner, then I'd go back out there with my flashlight and pull all my lines back in. And sometimes I'd have some catfish on there. Sometimes I wouldn't, but whatever. Right. So that was my idea of catfishing. And back September-ish, I ended up going on to Alabama, like big blue cats, Right. And I went there to do photos for a client, and I was getting kind of bored. There wasn't a lot of biting going on. It was like 2-3 in the morning, and they said, "Hey, you want to give it a shot?" And I'm like, "Hell yes!" I thought you guys would never ask, Cut up some skipjack and tossed a few, heaved a few lines out there, and one in particular, I didn't even get a chance to get my rod back in the holder, and the tip of the pole's already touching the water, and so I'm to this,
Right.
I was like, this is the real deal. I've got Moby Dick on here somewhere. But it ended up being a 48-pound blue cat.
Jeez.
And that was, like a sea monster. But of course, that's like half the weight of what some of those big, big blues that come out of Alabama weigh on rod and reel. So, anyways, it's pretty fun. I ended up signing on with the Cat Masters tournament to kind of be their resident photographer for that tournament series. Nice. And then, of course, from there, it just kind of turned into they have their corporate sponsors. And their corporate sponsors were like, "Hey, I need a photographer. I don't know any, but I know you now. So you want to shoot the commercial, or you want to shoot some photos, for our company, lifestyle, and, website images." So yeah, it's nuts, man. It's like a whole nother market, whole nother category. And, sometimes it's cool to do that outside of the hunting space. You know what I mean? Like, I think if we're so immersed in hunting and you go and do something on the outside, I don't know all the lingo, but I also don't pretend that I do either.
Right.
But you've got a fresh set of eyes and you look at things differently. So no matter what, my content is going to be shot a little different than what they're used to.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's been fun, man. I've been super busy with that. I was out
Now,
in your neck of the kind of your neck of the woods.
kind of my neck of the woods. Before we get there, are you
Yeah.
doing like the hand in the mouth?
No. Shit, no.
That seems like a little freaky to me, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, Hannah Barron and Jeff Barron, I've hung out with them a good bit, and
What's that called?
they were
I
actually
forget what that's called.
noodling.
Noodling. There you go.
Noodling, yeah. So they actually talked to me for a hot minute there about coming down to Alabama and noodling with them back over the summer. And we talked about it, and I'm like, all right, let's make it happen. Let's do it. I'll try anything once. And then I never heard anything more from them. So I don't know if I just fell off the radar or they just got really, really busy. So,
Right.
but no, that noodling stuff, man, that could be kind of sketchy. Now, my understanding, the way they do it is they do it in the boxes. They plant boxes down on the ground,
Okay.
down in the water. And I think they'll even take a stick and put in there just to make sure you don't have like a snapping turtle or, something like that in there.
Yeah.
But they'll check some holes. But no, man, I mean, that's the real deal. It's pretty freaky. And I mean, just on rod and reel, when I went to pick this big blue up and hold him up and did my little grip and grin photo with him, I mean, he chomped down on my hand and it drew blood.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
It drew blood. Yep.
That's for real.
So yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that I could get down on the noodling stuff, man. Cause that's like, you're also in snake country. And
yeah,
I've watched people do it before, and they just kind of walk along these muddy banks, you know what I mean, that have like, a place where you could get almost like a little cave or a hole or whatever they can get down in. And it's like, it's also a great place for, for snakes to make their den. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like, yeah, no thanks.
Yeah. There's more than one animal that calls that home.
Yeah. I ain't trying to encounter either one of them. This Pennsylvania guy, it's like, I'll stick to the trout stream. All good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In spring, whenever it's not quite warm enough for the copperheads and stuff to come out quite yet, like I'm all good.
Right. Yep, for sure.
So then you were in my neck of the woods, and you were doing some bird hunting there, weren't you?
Yep. Had a client, Heroes Outdoor Therapy. It's a nonprofit veteran group that they take vets out on hunts and outdoor adventures and stuff. But
and the photos you got from that were dope too, dude. You sent me some.
Oh man,
those were dope, man.
That was I appreciate it. Yeah, that was a blast. Went out there. We went to a game farm, and I guess in the world of pheasant hunting, game farm birds are like high fence, right?
Right.
And kind of has that same nomenclature, But to me, it's a little different though, because let's say I've got a German short hair or a wire hair, whatever, griffin, and I've got a brand new dog, and we haven't gone out for the real thing. I'm assuming there's some training, right? I mean, you need to kind of train your dog. Like, I don't have a problem with those game farms. If you're doing groups and functions and nonprofit events and training new dogs or just maybe keeping your dogs fresh. I see nothing wrong with that at all. Well, now, if you're going and representing, that it was a free range deal. Sure. That's different,
Right. Well, and it's like what they're doing for these guys, like the hunt, in my opinion, what this particular nonprofit is doing is secondary to supporting the veterans that are benefiting from it. Correct. Right.
Correct.
So like in my mind, it's like the A1 objective of that is to take some folks who may have some challenges from the service that they've provided, and you're trying to give them an outlet and an experience, right? And it's like, I mean, look, you and I are willing to walk around the woods and not see anything on plenty of hunts, right? But this person may not be a person that can get out all that often, and may not have may struggle with some, anxiety issues or whatever that may preclude them from getting out on their own or whatever that keeps them from getting out or whatever the case is. Right. So it's like, in that case, man, it's like whatever it takes to get someone outdoors and, be able to use the outdoors for some mental health, all about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it's been super cool to get out there with them, and see what they're doing with some of these vets. And, I'm fortunate that I get to poke some of them and to do like the post hunt interviews and stuff. And I'm like, hey, how'd today go? And every time they're just like, it's such a cool opportunity to come out and, spend some time with some other vets, and you kind of miss that camaraderie that you have, and whatnot. It's so fulfilling. You know what I mean? Like I get just as much joy out of it, and I'm never pulling a trigger on anything.
Right. Other than a shutter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's super fun, and yeah, man, I was able to, like I said, take some cool pictures and have a good time and laugh out with those guys. But unfortunately, I got stuck in Harrisburg because that big snowstorm hit. Yeah. So I could never survive quarantine. I know that for a fact because I spent 18 hours in a hotel room and I was about to off myself.
You called me and you're like, I'm in a hotel room. I'm sitting in my underwear. I'm eating some like shitty vending machine food right now. Living your best like hotel life down on your luck, stuck in a snowstorm.
Yeah, I could never, ever do quarantine. Kudos to those people that can travel somewhere and be locked into a hotel room for 14 days. This cat ain't happening.
Yeah, that would be.
I'd lose my mind.
Yeah, that would be brutal. But I mean, back to the birds, man. Like with the farms and stuff like that. Like there's places in PA that they stock birds. Because for example, like back home, I know there was a bunch of birds, when I was growing up. My dad and I used to go bird hunting a fair amount. My dad's still real into it. But the numbers just dwindled to where like places back home where you used to find them just regularly or naturally or whatever, they're just not there unless they're stocked. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing with like trout streams and stuff like that too, man. I mean, they stock the trout streams back home and stuff like that. And so for some of those things, like, you don't get those experiences without some assistance or without some help.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah. And it was, like I said, man, it was super cool to be out there doing what they're doing. But like I said, I mean, it was interesting to me too, because at the end of the day, like it's almost no different than the hunting world,
Yeah.
Man, out there doing some high fence hunting, know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, everyone should just be, let each have their own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everything kind of has a place, you know what I mean?
Right.
It fulfills a need and that's cool. Just like certain high fence operations and stuff like that fill a need for some, don't fill a need for me, but they fill a need for someone. Otherwise I wouldn't be in business. So, but man, I want to pivot to, well, first, before we pivot to whitetail hunting, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you happy Valentine's Day. We got the big,
likewise, you big sweetheart. You. I saw one of the funniest things the other day. It was like somebody made a meme with and not to take this section of the podcast political, but it had a certain press secretary's face as the card, and it said like, will you be my Valentine? I promise to circle back.
Okay.
It was pretty funny.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's Valentine's Day, not to get off on the Valentine's Day rant, but it's like the most bullshit made up holiday on the planet, and I hate gift giving, and it's just like one more holiday that I got to go out. I told my wife, I was like, tomorrow morning I'm gonna have to get up and go down to the gas station and get you one of those roses. It's in the little glass container, and like a bottle of 5 Hour energy drink, the red kind at least, because it's Valentine's Day. I was like, because that's where I'm at. I was like, that's the planning I've done.
Oh, that's good stuff.
And then I was telling someone at work, I was like, when I was in the band, there was a 7-Eleven that wasn't far away from our rehearsal space, and I would stop there. You'd always see like some down on his luck kind of guy in there buying a glass stem rose from in there and a Brillo pad.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, old boy's getting ready to party tonight,
Yeah. It's so funny you said that, because I was going to bring that up. We used to the gas stations, they'd call them the brown bag specials.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd get one chore boy, one glass pipe with little rose inside of it.
Yeah. That was the the bum special right there.
Yep. Somebody's gonna smoke that crack rock tonight.
Oh yeah, that and that old E gonna get toe up.
Yep.
From the flow up.
Yep. Oh, it's so funny, man.
Yeah, so we've pretty much driven this one straight into the dumpster. We'll try to salvage it here by.
Hey, if anybody's still listening, we're gonna make a segue into hunting.
Yeah, after we talked about crackheads and stuff, we'll go ahead and segue into hunting. But with that hard transition, I think the last time we talked, like you were getting ready to go back and make a second trip. I think it was your second trip. You were getting ready to make a second trip to Kansas. First trip. Yeah, because your first trip, I'm just kind of recapping for people. First trip, you had hunted a couple days in October. The deer you were after in Iowa, as you would suspect, showed up on trail camera, near where you hunt multiple days in daylight, as if he knew you weren't going to be there. And you were in Kansas hunting. You had missed a decent deer, came back and finished out the Iowa season, and you were going back to Kansas for late season, I think is where we left it. So I know how that story ended. So if you wouldn't mind, let's talk a little bit about the Kansas redemption, if you will.
Yeah. So I had been out in Kansas the very first day. I got up early that morning, left Iowa, drove out to Kansas, got into a set, and had been in the tree maybe an hour and a half, and started crashing the horns together. And a really, really nice buck, the buck that I actually came there to shoot, comes charging in, and he kind of checked up a little early. He was downwind of me. He was trying to catch some scent, but he wasn't moving. He stood there for a minute, and I kind of told myself, if this deer doesn't move for a whole damn minute, like, I'm going to go ahead and send carbon at him, because I think he's just froze, like he's not moving until he sees a deer. He heard a fight. He can't smell anything. And if I don't send an arrow, he's eventually just going to leave it. So I thought at that distance, as windy as it was, that I could go ahead and send an arrow his direction, and I didn't have anything to worry about. He ended up dropping about 18 to 20 inches, and the arrow sailed right over his back. And so we ended up hunting a couple more days trying to get back on him, and couldn't get back on him. And then I got a phone call from my mom, and she advised that my dad was sick. And we were joking, and I was like, yep, he probably got the Rona.
Right.
And it turned out to not be Rona. It ended up being stage 4 cancer. And we never knew of stages 1, 2, or 3. So, the first time he went to the doctor's office, he came out and he was stage 4 cancer. So that was just pretty much done for me. Like, it didn't feel right to be hunting. I felt like, I was like, man, I got to get home. So, and I had all these deer running around Iowa, and but at the end of the day, the main reason that I left Kansas was it just didn't feel right. My heart wasn't in it. I didn't really want to be there. I just wanted to get back to Kentucky, and visit with my folks. So I ended up leaving, and got to go visit, Kentucky, came back to Iowa, hunted a little bit. And then I went back to Kentucky, for Thanksgiving and whatnot. My dad ended up passing away December 16th. And our shotgun season, was still in at the time. And so came back to Iowa and kind of fiddled around, and Kelly's like, she's like, you got to get out of the house. Like, you're driving me crazy. Cause I was just moping around the house. I just felt like crap, So I knew that I still had a Kansas tag, to burn. And I was like, you know what? That's what I need to do. I just need to, I need to get out and keep myself busy. So I went back out to Kansas and, self-filmed, solo hunted, on the third day, the second or third day.
Hmm.
Um, and ended up shooting a buck, um, that morning out there. So it's kind of a cool way to wrap up the
Yeah.
season, and like to go back to Kansas and shoot one where, where I was before, and I left on not such good terms, and I mean I was by myself and I cried like a big baby, you know what I mean?
Rightfully so, man. Like
Yeah.
I remember whenever it was, I was sitting in my office working that day, and of course I knew that you're one of my best friends, man, and I love you to death. And so I had known what was going on with like the family and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
we hadn't talked a whole lot after, only because my kind of approach is like, I'm there for my boys when they need me. I'm not going to
Yeah.
intrude and impose, and let them kind of let me know when we need to chat or whatever.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
had talked since then here and there and texted and stuff like that. And I knew that you were in Kansas, and I'm sitting here working. And it's funny because I think we've said this in the podcast before. Like, you and I don't call each other unless we're driving, right? Like,
Yeah.
like it's typically like we text all the time, but it's like we won't do a phone call unless we're driving. Usually, occasionally we will, but like typically,
Yeah.
if one calls the other, like we're on the road, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. One of us is rolling down the highway.
right, exactly. And so I knew you were in Kansas, and my phone starts buzzing, and I happened to not be in a meeting, and I look down, and it's a FaceTime, and I'm like, John doesn't FaceTime me ever. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, never does he FaceTime me. So immediately I was like, old boy shot a buck. I was like, I guarantee you he did.
Yeah.
So I'm in the middle of work,
Yeah.
and I pick up the phone. I'm like, did you kill it? And you were like, yeah, man. Like, it's like, it was probably my favorite phone call from this season for a bunch of different reasons, man. Like, one, because I just, super stoked that my buddies kill a deer, but second, it was just like all the shit you had been through and stuff like that, man. It was just, I kind of understand like how therapeutic those like solo moments can be. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I was just glad that you got to have that. And it's almost like, a sense of not 100% closure, man, but it's like there's a chapter that closes, like, in a way. You know what I mean? That'll let you kind of start to look forward again. You know what I mean? Like, you needed like that one good thing, like that one like positive experience to go, all right, I've had a rough go, but man, not to quote the movie from the 90s, but it can't rain all the time.
Yeah.
The Crow, you know what I mean? It's like, and so I was just super stoked that happened. I mean, was this what I want you to explain the buck too, because what I love is like the buck, his rack, and like, it was like the first thing you had said to me, like when you killed him. And like, when I saw the picture, it was like, not only was the end of the hunt fitting, like how it like closed like the thing, everything out, but the characteristics of the buck kind of also make it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when, so another buck had actually come in that morning, but it was like 27 minutes before legal shooting light. And the only way I could really tell what he was through binos. You know how sometimes you can look through binos or your scope and things are a little bit brighter, Yeah. And I looked at him through the scope, and it was a really clear sky, and it was enough to at least I could make out a silhouette of this buck's rack. And I'm like, oh damn. I mean, he was wide.
Right.
He was probably a good 20, 21 inch inside spread buck. He wasn't real tall tined, but he was a real good looking, 3 or 4 year old buck. And I was like, damn, it's too early, and I looked at it and I thought, well, man, if if he hangs around for the next 15 to 20 minutes and I get into legal shooting light, I can kill him. And he ended up walking away. And I had a little conversation with myself. I'm like, well, at least I saw a shooter,
Right.
like I might not get a crack at one, but damn, at least I saw one. That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And Then it gets to legal shooting light, and I'm looking around. I'm like, well, that buck's gone. And I mean, I could see him like 300 yards out, in this Milo field. Um, and it was so cold, whenever you pulse hole through ice,
Mm-hmm.
some critter I could hear post holing through the creek next to me. And I was like, well, we better take a little sneak peek out of this blind and see what's coming. And it was a another buck. And when I first looked at him from a distance, I was like, looks like he's missing some antlers. I was like, or he's just like a 6-pointer or something like that. Then he got a little closer, and then I could tell what was broken. And he had flyers broken off his G2s, and his G3 is just completely missing altogether on the right side. And I'm like, good Lord, he's got 15 to 20 inches of bone that's broke off. And I made the comment, I'm like, man, he's all busted up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you know what? I'm a little busted up too right now.
Right.
And it was no question in my mind. I was like, I'm killing him,
Yep.
And I was like, man, busted up deer, busted up season, busted up mentality.
Yep.
I was pretty worn out, beat up myself. And I had a bunch of trail camera pictures of that buck, and my buddy had actually named this buck the can opener, which he's got these little flyers off of his twos that look like, can openers. And from looking at all the trail camera pictures and holding the antler, the rack in my hand, we ended up determining that there was like 18 inches of bone that was actually broke off the deer.
Wow.
So, just tying inches.
Right.
So, yeah.
Super cool buck, man.
Crazy.
Like, so are you going to have, are you going to have Old Barn remake the antlers? Or are you going to leave them all busted up?
So I went ahead and repaired them. I did.
Oh, you did? Okay. Oh, nice.
I'm in there all the time, and I've seen them do it. And I asked the owner, Sam, I said, hey, do you mind if I give this a shot? And he's like, I don't give a shit. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to buy some epoxy. And he goes, you ain't buying shit. It's sitting on the shelf. Just grab it and do it, Right. I was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me watch a YouTube video. But, he kind of coached me through it a little bit. And like I said, I've seen him shape them. And it's a little bit like that Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore ghost movie a little bit, So just keeping it wet, and you just keep stroking it and shaping it and stroking it and shaping it and, whatnot. It looks a little perverted at times because of the motion that you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially when all the guys at the taxidermy shop are standing over top you watching you do it. It's like
yeah, they're watching me dip my hands in water, and I'm making like an okay symbol, with my index finger and my thumb, and I'm just basically stroking this tine, shaping it, necking it down. I was like, God, this feels awful. And then one guy walks by and he goes, you look like you got some experience. I'm like, easy, Tiger, knock it off.
There's a massage parlor you might get a job at down the street, man. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's a fallback.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But that stuff takes about 24 hours, hardens, hard as a rock. And then I went back in a couple of days later and started painting, matching up colors and kind of blending colors together, whatnot. And I'm happy with it. I'm happy with how it turned out. And actually, I didn't even add everything on there that was broke off. I mean, he had a G3 on the right side that was probably about 12 and a half inches. And I think I only made it like 10 inches, Right.
Nice.
Was happy with the shape.
Did you get the mount back yet or not yet?
No. No. I went ahead and left the horns there. And they, they catalog everything, and they do such a good job with their inventory tracking. So they're like, well, if you want to take them home, just sign them out, and then you can sign them back in. And I'm like, no, I don't need them.
Yeah, just let them.
And I don't want to delay the process of them getting to my mount.
Right, exactly. If you let them there, then you know for sure it's in line. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have a specific kind of special place kind of picked out for this guy in the house?
Yeah, yeah. Just because of the way you've seen the way I've got stuff on the wall
Yeah.
up above the TV there. What basically I'm gonna do is I have everything looking towards the center of the room. So his head position is actually gonna put him just to the right of the center buck, but
Nice.
he'll be on the second row.
Nice.
So now I'm starting. It's kind of a zigzag row, like there's two rows now. So he'll be the first deer on the third row.
Nice. That's awesome, man.
Yep.
Yeah, dude, great hunt, man. I was super pumped, like I said, to get that FaceTime, man. It actually made my day. You know, it's
Well, we're homies because I'm trying to think. You and my buddy Ward with musket powder, and my taxidermist. Yeah, you were the only three people that, and my Billy C.
right.
I called four people that day. That's it. So
Yep. Yeah, man.
you're in my top four of all time, homie.
There you go, man. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, as are you, man. But only my texts to you usually include me missing something. Like,
yeah,
you're like one of these days you'll get the call where I killed something. Well, and that'll be super rad when that happens.
Yeah, right.
But
man,
but you drug one out. You drug one out with me though. You drug one out with me.
Yeah,
though.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It's like, so we got that, I don't know if that's winning or losing, but.
Oh, that's winning. Yeah, that's winning. And I mean, I was so pumped up to take those photos for you that night. Like, I don't particularly like dragging out deer because it usually reminds me of my cardio shit.
Yeah.
And exactly. I really hate dragging other people's deer out. But yours was like, hell yes. Yeah. Let's drag this joker.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Yeah, man.
And and knowing that you had come all the way out here from PA, and so that was cool to see you get a good buck,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, dude, I still look at those pictures like no less than like twice a week. I have they're still saved in my phone. I mean, I have them on my computer as well, but they're on my phone still. And I'll just like twice a week, I'll flip through and like look at them again. My wife makes fun of me because where that mount is hanging is like in the entryway to my basement. Like, so you come from my kitchen, you open the door, and there's like an entryway wall. Like when you open that door, then to go down the stairs into the basement, and that's where I hung him because I'll see him every time I open the door to walk down. And it's like, she makes fun of me because almost every time I walk by it, this is like really maybe creepy. I'm like, it's so weird to say it out loud. I go, I love you, Iowa buck. Like every time I walk by it, I talk to it and say, I love you, Iowa buck. And she's like, seriously? She's like, are you ever going to stop saying that when you walk down the stairs of the basement? I was like,
nope.
Not until there's another one from Iowa that's hanging in that spot. I was like, that's when I'll stop saying it to that one. So
or I love you, Kansas buck, or
exactly. Yeah, exactly. But speaking of, man, so that was kind of the wrap of your season, Kansas, right? It was kind of the close of everything because at that point Iowa had shut down, like was done already, Yeah. And so now we're really talking about, on to shed hunting, which that I know you're a fiend about to put on the miles for piles. So when you getting ready to kick that off? Or did you start
there's
already?
Been a lot. No. There's been a lot more sheds. It seems like every year antlers fall sooner and sooner. Or is it just because of social media? Of everybody's sheds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And more people are getting in shed hunting. So I don't know. I mean, but it does seem like we had some cold snaps this year, and it caused some antlers to drop a little bit sooner. But every year in Iowa, consistently, when I go through my phone and I look at when I'm finding the most amount of sheds, it's always between March 5th and March 12th. That's when I do all my big scooping. I might walk the 2nd and the 3rd and get blanked in a field, come back on the 8th and pick up 6.
Right.
So, and now we've got about 16 inches of fresh snow on the ground.
Oh, really?
And it's about to be negative like 20. Yeah. So
Dude, that's
Yeah, I'm not shed hunting anytime
yeah,
soon.
yeah, dude. I remember when I came out to scout and shed hunt with you. It was like,
Yep.
it was like in the negatives. That trip, that was gnarly.
Yep.
There wasn't a bunch of snow. I mean, there was a little bit of snow that was left because it had melted off. But that's where I'm at,
Yep.
man. Like I'm chomping at the bit to get out to do some scouting. I want to put the trailer back into the wind again, you know, and
Yep.
you know, do some scouting, do some shed hunting. Shed hunting, not quite yet, but there's a big piece of public, or a couple big pieces of public that are maybe hour and a half, maybe 2 hours from me, that my plan is to hit those this year, scout those, and I'm actually going to be hanging a bunch of trail cameras on it to try to see if I can't find a good mountain buck that's in eastern PA. I know they're all over, you know, western PA. I shouldn't say all over, but you know, the Allegheny is out there, and that's a really great, you know, area and stuff like that. And there's really good deer there. And so my thinking was there's a couple spots I kind of learned of that I think are going to hold some decent deer up in the Poconos. And my plan is to head up there and do that. But I've got just around me, man, I've got 12 inches the first. Well, when you were here, we got 12 inches, right? So that, well, at least in my place, out of my place, we got a foot. And then I think 3 days later, I got another 8 to 10. And then I got another 3 to 5 this morning. And I'm getting like another 3 to 5 tomorrow, and another 3 to 5 Tuesday. So it's like I'm over like 2 foot, and I'm not in the mountains. You go up to the Poconos, and that first snowstorm, they got 2 foot that first dump. So the chances the chances of me actually getting out to do any type of scouting anytime soon is like not until the snow melts, which really kind of sucks because the wife is all about the honey-do list while I'm not scouting. So the only way I can get out of that is to scout. So I need the snow I need the snow to be gone like tomorrow. Is what I'm saying essentially.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with cuz I know you were thinking of some like new lease opportunities and stuff like that out by you, or not having a lease at all.
Yeah.
Or, you know, what's your plan for that? Cuz I know you were having some issues with some jokers out in your neck of the woods.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was dealing with some knuckleheads out here, and I anticipate that I'll still be dealing with them a little bit. I might have to put hands on people, you know what I mean?
Right.
But you know, I was going to drop my lease altogether. But until I find another lease, I'm going to have to keep it. I just am going to go into the season a little bit differently this year and be a lot more aggressive, and know that, hey, I've got October and November. And then once we hit shotgun season, that's it. You know, the property's done, because I've got no guarantees that the landowner's not going to do the same thing to me this year that he did last year, and, you know, give a bunch of yahoos permission to go out there with their 24-man army or whatever with shotguns and start slinging lead everywhere.
Right.
So, like, you know, it's been brought up 100 times. I'm not anti-shotgun hunting.
Right.
I am anti-driving. I'm anti-party hunting, and I'm anti, you know, jumping fences and just shooting shit that you don't have permission to hunt. You know, that sucks for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, and the way these kids went about gaining access to that property, you know, they're religious followers, and most people don't know where the property is. But if you know exactly where the property is, and then you see some of the information that I put out there, I told them exactly where the buck was, in essence. I mean, they killed that buck 72 yards from my grizzly box blind that I moved for late season.
Right.
I moved it into position to hunt that deer late season, and they ended up killing him 72 yards from that spot in the open field.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was on him, you know?
Yep.
If I had a semi-auto shotgun, I might have been able to kill him.
Right. Yeah. I think might is an understatement. As many times as you've seen that deer and as close as you were to him, you know, on multiple occasions.
Well, and you know, and the fact of the matter is, I mean, the deer got shot at multiple times with slugs. The first shot his leg off, like from the elbow down, blew it off. completely, and then that doubled him over, and then it was a mercy killing, and then it was lead slung at him from every direction
Right.
as he tried to scramble to get back to his feet. I mean, people always want to argue the ethics of bow hunting and, that kind of stuff. Well, if you're sending 20 rounds at an animal to try to kill him, you tell me that's ethical,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think you would probably say the same thing. I don't want to speak for you, but regardless of what the weapon of choice is, it's like you still need to
Yeah.
take ethical shots and try to make ethical kills.
Yeah.
And look,
Yeah.
you miss, you screw up, you hit them bad sometimes. It happens to everybody. You know what I mean? It happened to me this year in Missouri. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm not,
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to misconstrue this as me suggesting that I never take a bad shot or never hit something bad or whatever. Well, I'll put it this way. I don't intentionally take bad shots. Sometimes you don't make a great shot. You know what I mean? So I think that's more the point that I'm making. It's like you can't be 100% certain. You try to do as much as you possibly can. Once you release the arrow or the bullet, if you have buck fever or you clip a small twig that you didn't see or whatever the case is. I mean, there's certain circumstances, right? Like shit happens, right?
Yep.
But to cognizantly just kind of go willy-nilly without an appreciation for what it is you're trying to do and how to go about doing it, that's kind of fundamentally where I have a problem. Because not just is an animal in jeopardy, and again, John and I aren't dissing gun hunting. I grew up gun hunting. That's when mistakes and accidents happen. That's when mistakes and accidents happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the simple question is to ask any hunter,
anyway,
would you take a shot at a running deer?
Right.
Well, no, it's a low percentage chance. Okay. So then what about people that do that?
Right.
I wounded a deer this year, Tyson in particular. But I waited for him to stop. I put all the cards into my favor for me to make a clean, ethical kill. I fully expected that deer to drop and, to duck the sound of the bow. And he didn't. So that's on me. I screwed up, but I put everything in motion, but no one can tell me that, they're taking a 100-yard shot with iron sights on a running deer and they're slinging 5-6 rounds in his general vicinity. That they give a fuck about ethics.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, they're hoping and praying at that point, or wishing and hoping,
they're just horn hungry at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, devaluing, I think there's a little bit of devaluing, the animal's life at that point. You know what I mean?
Well, when you let your desire to fill a tag or whatever it is overcome your ability to
your moral compass
or just your ability to have a thought process that keeps you from making terrible mistakes. You know what I mean? Because for an example, right? Because I mean, shooting the deer, wounding it, whatever the case is bad, but it's not the worst thing that can happen in the woods, right?
Yeah.
The example that I'll give is I was actually in the woods when this happened. It was actually, I don't know, it might have been national news, maybe it wasn't. There was a guy that was hunting in an area around where I live. I was actually not far away from the guy. I don't know him, didn't know it was happening, but I just heard a bunch of sirens, and my buddy called me and was like, "Hey, did you hear all those sirens?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Apparently someone got shot." And this was like, I think it would have been like October 17th, 16th, something like that. It was a Saturday, and I think it might have been the opening of like small games. So like duck was open and stuff like that. So there was a lot of shots that were going on just in general. And I think it was also like mentored youth, or maybe in my special regs unit, it might have been limited doe hunting with a shotgun, I think is actually what it was. And this guy thought he saw like a deer's head bob. And I think when I read like the press release from like the police report or whatever, it was, I want to say they said like 300 feet or something like that. Right. So like he was like 100 yards, 100 plus yards away or whatever from the guy roughly, and shot a guy sitting on a bench near some water through the neck while he was sitting next to his girlfriend and killed him. You know what I mean? Like, because he saw something move that he couldn't tell what it was. And, you know, it turns out this guy has had, I guess, some like infractions in the past. So I don't think he was like the brightest bulb on the strand of lights, so to speak, you know, but regardless, you know, he wasn't verifying what he was shooting at, you know, obviously certainly wasn't verifying anything that was behind the target, you know what I mean? And mistook his target because he was just trying to like kill a deer at any cost. Right. And I think that is more the moral of like, when you and I talk about this stuff, you know, cause every time we get like, it's funny, I can almost set my watch to it. Like we'll get some shitty comments, you know what I mean? Like, on like, on social or on YouTube or whatever. But the reality is like, we're not talking about like the function of it being like gun hunting or whatever. It's a function of, you know, people taking, you know, less care. And a lot of times that less care happens in the environment of those seasons where you are party hunting, things like that. And look, we drove and stuff like that when I was a kid. Again, gun hunted, did deer drives, like did all that growing up, right? Get it. You know what I mean? Like I understand there's a cultural thing about it too. I think where John and I kind of lie on this is that it lends itself to provide the opportunity to make mistakes. You know, I think that's the point that we're making. Does that sound about right, man? Does that kind of encapsulate it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, I grew up gun hunting myself, rifle hunting. I don't have a problem with any weapons. If somebody was taking pop shots with a crossbow or a vertical bow, I have
say the same thing.
Position. Yeah. It is not the weapon. It is the ethics. That's it. Yep. That's all I'm saying. And again, I'm the one that brought it up. So don't hate Clint, hate me.
It's okay, man. I'll ride with you, man. You're my ride or die.
I got big shoulders.
Right.
And if you're still triggered, then come see me. We'll figure it out in person.
Right. It's interesting though, like you mentioned crossbow there, because there was like a big to-do recently that I was reading about.
What's up with that repeating crossbow?
Dude, that shit was crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like, what is, like, I don't even know what that is.
It's like the follow-up shot crossbow.
It's like, well, what that is like, as soon as I saw that, what I thought is like, you know, cool. That's for the guy who was marginal with his attempt anyway. So we're going to give him a couple more chances.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, nah, probably don't need more chances. Like, right. Like if I miss with my bow, chances are I'm not going to get another arrow. You know what I mean?
It's real tough to regain composure.
Yeah.
And
together. I probably don't deserve another arrow because the best shot opportunity I was going to have was that first one.
Was usually that first one. Yeah.
Right. Yep. It's like, so I made a marginal shot when situation was prime. And now you're going to give me a really quick follow-up whenever the situation is compromised.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And it's not like I'm down on crossbow hunting necessarily. It's more, I was more getting at, Montana had like this legislation, I think if I remember reading the article correctly, where in years past they had passed, you know, the law or whatever it was that basically said like, hey, you can use crossbows, but it's considered like as part of like the gun season, essentially. Like you can use a crossbow, but you have to use it during gun season, if I remember correctly. And I'm like, makes sense. With that. Yeah. I'm like, that makes sense. And I also kind of think crossbows, it's like, look, if someone has a disability or they hit a certain age and that's the only way they can get out in the timber, then rock it out. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of my feeling. And basically that was the law. Someone tried to reintroduce it and say, hey, we should open this up. I think was one of the things they talked about. Potentially when they had already kind of voted it down, if I'm not mistaken. And then they were also trying to kind of distribute more tags to resident outfitters to distribute versus allowing people to go through like the draw system, like non-residents to go through like the draw system to get a tag. Like, so a larger percentage of them was going to be bought up by the outfitters and limit out of state opportunities. Cause basically they were saying that the people who come to outfitters spend more money because they pay at the outfitter and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the DIY hunter just doesn't put as much money into the economy. So we aren't going to prioritize them, essentially, is what they were saying.
Yep.
Which,
have you ever looked at those numbers, like for the state of Montana and the state of Idaho, and like how much money comes in from non-residents?
I have not.
It's insane. It's like multiple millions of dollars.
Yeah. I don't doubt
it. Coming from non-resident tags. And I mean, here's the thing, like, is it going to bring more money overall into the outfitter's hands? Yes. There will not be as many non-resident sold.
Right. Yeah. And I think that was their thing. You know, that was their thing, was like, how do we help they were thinking about small businesses and how do we help small business outfitters and stuff like that. Right. And the argument that was made, and, you know, I don't think that they should go to outfitters personally. A couple of reasons. One, I think when you move the tags over to the outfitter, I think what you said exactly, like you'll start to have a reduced number of non-residents coming out to hunt, because not everyone's going to want to pay the outfitter cost. I think that's the beauty of when you hunt the
Correct.
West, is you can have an amazing experience and not have to hunt with an outfitter. You know what I mean? Because you have such vast public lands and stuff like that. So I think that there's that component of it. The part that, like, fundamentally for me is why I don't like it, is because that to me is just another handout bailout from the government. Like, we're going to stack the deck, business owner, for you, but we're going to screw all these other ones. Like, these other ones don't count, but we're going to figure out a way to help you make more money. And I'm a firm believer in supply and demand, right? In the economics of a state, or, you know, the economy in general, will decide and determine what is the strong and what will survive and what will not. And where those that do not, stronger, better suited ones will take their place. You know, so.
Well, think about when you're on an airplane and they give you the instructions before takeoff. Mm-hmm. They say your mask will fall down, right?
Right.
And the first thing they say, put on your own damn mask.
Right.
Then give assistance to somebody with getting their mask on, because you're no good to that person if you're dead.
Right.
Right. Same thing in policing or whatever. So the states need money, but they want to help out the small businesses. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So let's take money out of our state's pocket to go fund some of these outfitters. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Right.
But they are basically cutting off their nose to spite their face.
Right. Yeah. That's not that we're going to get political, but that's kind of the role of how things work. It's very circular, right? It's like you solve one problem to create another one, to then try to find another solution, which then yet begets another problem. It's just, you never actually find a solution. You just continually plugging holes in dams with fingers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas if you let those who are the weak be consumed as they should be, right? Just like a forest fire, like they're not bad, right? It comes through, it burns things out, and what replaces is typically better than what was there previously. It's the same idea. And I'm not saying small businesses don't need support, but I think it's kind of odd that you would just kind of selectively kind of call out, like, you know, in this state, because we have a large part of our revenue comes from, you know, hunting license sales, we're going to specifically help this group. You know, it's like, I'm sure there are plenty of restaurants and small mom and pop businesses outside of the outfitter community that are probably equally, if not more, you know, in dire straits. You know what I mean? So,
well, and I'd like to know how much, again, not pointing fingers, not speculating, just devil's advocate, food for thought, how much of this is driven by residential hunters.
Mm-hmm.
If I've got some sweet hunting ground in public peace, and all of a sudden every year I had this huge influx of, you know, non-resident hunters coming into my shit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Am I going to write my congressman?
Right.
I don't know.
And one of the things that I read that they were kind of saying, kind of tied into what you said earlier, was just like the non-resident hunting numbers would likely drop over time. And that was the big concern that they had, because essentially what they said was, like, if we start putting the tags in like a select few's hands, right, they then have the ability then, whether they generate enough revenue or whatever the case is, to then start to grow their land mass, right? Because if you have more tags, you've got more hunters, you got to get more land, right? To fulfill those needs. You can't have 3 times as many hunters pass through your outfitter you're through an outfitter with the same amount of land, right? Because your opportunity numbers and pressure and all those types of things that they have to manage and think about. So then they start buying up more land, which then reduces the amount of public land that's open to actually hunt, free willy nilly.
Yeah.
Like you and I would go hunt, so.
Yeah. It's a perpetual problem.
Yeah.
I see it almost like a slippery slope effect, that very, very well could happen. I could be wrong, but it very well could happen that way. I mean, let's face it. I know some outfitters, I'm not saying they exploit the ground, but if they take a property from a landowner and they're leasing it, dude, I'm telling you, they're in the purpose of making money. They're going to burn through some resources.
Yeah.
And by resources, I mean the animals on the turf.
Yep.
And once they're gone, okay, you got to dump it and go find another lease.
Yep. Exactly. Well, with that, ending on a high note there, ending on a real positive note.
Yeah.
We'll go
Saving
ahead.
The best.
That's right.
Damn politicians.
I know, right? Well, but with that, man, all you guys out there listening, if you haven't yet, go to the Arrow Wild YouTube channel and watch the Kansas hunt. Like, it was one of my favorite hunts to watch this year. So I ask everyone to go do that. You won't be disappointed. Killer narration as always, killer footage that Johnny always lays down as always, and just a real meaningful story. And the one thing that I always appreciate about you, dude, not just our friendship, but the things that you do also, and from a creative standpoint, it's 100% Johnny Utah all the time, and it's authentic as shit. Yep. And that's what I love about you, man. But before we dip, let people know where they can find out more about Johnny, what all you got going on. Bourbon barrel calls, turkey season's coming up. Get your cluck on.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, excuse me. These damn hiccups.
Dude, I told you, stand on your head, homie. Stand on your head.
Well, I did that, and
I would pay money I would pay money to see you do that.
Well, and I drank water through a straw upside down, and that got them away to come on the podcast. And then they just came back, and I was like, well, I can't really do that while we're recording.
Right.
Let's do it again. Bourbon Barrel Call on Instagram and Facebook. Custom turkey calls made from reclaimed bourbon barrels. Let's see, Arrow Wild TV, Instagram. I have lost access to my Facebook page right now.
How'd that happen?
It is currently owned in Egypt.
Oh,
so I got hacked, and they removed me as the admin.
Nice.
So I'm trying to deal with Facebook right now to get it back. If anybody has any experience with getting a page back from Facebook, there's not like there's a 1-800 number.
Right.
I can't even find the proper link to where you can like open up a service ticket or anything like that.
Right.
So I've lost access to that page. Excuse me. That page. It's been about a month now.
Jeez.
That I haven't had access to it. But Arrow Wild Instagram still running. And then myself personally, johnny.utah.hunt and Johnny Utah Official on Facebook. But that's me. You can find me snapping pictures or trying to hunt and make some turkey calls.
Right. Well, check him out. Check him out, folks. Thanks for coming on, dude. I always like talking to you. I always like having you on. My brother from another mother. The Rattler.
Yes, sir.
He's out.
See ya.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there too. I'd be super appreciative if you'd be able to do those two things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tethered, Exodus Outdoor Gear, Skull Brew Coffee Company, and Maven Optics. And until next time, we'll see y'all.